Rahil Siddiqui. Joining me today to help make the case for flexibility in the front lines of our workforce will be Brian Herity. I'm going to introduce Brian in just a moment, but let me just get us going first. So we've heard a lot of speakers talk about some of the workforce challenges that we have in the world of the supply chain. And we don't have to go through all of those all over again. But what we are here to do today is to make a case for frontline labor flexibility. So think of your frontline associates in your warehouses, distribution centers, factories, right? And this can go from everywhere, from a light industrial distribution center all the way to a glass manufacturer, right? Shoveling sand in one end and glass coming out the other. Pretty as hardcore industrial as it gets. So those workforce challenges are pretty standard in terms of how we're seeing labor become a problem. It's not quite the hair on fire problem that we experienced about 2-3 years ago, right? But this is still there. That's just as persistent now. And with the current policies of the administration, be it from a tariffs standpoint or from an immigration standpoint, both of those are driving in the same direction, if you think about it. More manufacturing to occur in the United States and slightly fewer people who may be able to go do those manufacturing jobs. So the question is, how do we continue to overcome some of those challenges? So we all have done this math at some point in the last couple of years. What does it cost to replace a worker? What does it cost to truly train them, bring them up to speed? And can we really afford to keep doing this, keep having this revolving door with attrition and retraining and upskilling our labor? So this is, what is that definition of insanity, trying to do the same thing over and over twice as hard, right? So we got to start thinking about how we do something different. So lots and lots of mandatory forced overtime out there in the industry right now. That's only leading to burnout. It's very slow and painful to go find people who are willing to work those full-time schedules, whatever schedules we might have. We're working with factories right now where we see 20, 30, 40 different work schedules in one location, and we're just trying to get really cute with all of those permutations, combinations until somebody's head implodes. So we've got to figure out what, something's got to give here. And so I thought I'd give a little bit of backdrop about myself. I dealt with this. I was the HR guy to the chief operating officer of a $16 billion company. If you've heard of it, it's called TE Connectivity or Tyco Electronics. I grew up doing HR in factories, in the automotive as well as the aerospace supply chain. And happened to read one line in one CNN article a few years ago, right in the depths of the Great Resignation. And about 10 days later, I quit that job that I held for 12 years and started building this. So that one line was essentially written about the state of the labor market and talking about how things are really bad in trying to attract and retain people right now. However, millions of more women are expected to leave the workforce in the coming months due to a lack of flexibility in their jobs. So I'm there sitting next to the COO, have visibility to over 100 factories globally, where we have 50,000 frontline workers. And I've been here for over a decade. I've drunk the Kool-Aid, we've walked the walk, talked the talk with diversity, inclusion, engagement, all the fun stuff, right? And then I'm sitting there scratching my head. What does flexibility mean for a frontline worker? Mind you, this is the same period of time when all the keyboard warriors on LinkedIn are talking about work from home or hybrid work and working from the office 100% of the time. But what does flexibility mean for that frontline worker? So that was the question I got obsessed with and started building tools that I wish I had when I was on the front lines of HR. So Since then, without making this a full-blown sales presentation, I will say we've learned a lot. We've started defining and building a thesis around what flexibility entails for frontline labor. And we've worked with some of the largest and some of the most conservative, traditional industrial manufacturers out there. And we've got a really interesting thesis to lay out in front of you. But I thought the proof of the pudding should truly come from someone who's actually working through this problem himself. So in a moment, I'll ask Brian to come up here and join me. But lots of benefits. I mean, the payoff is there. It is the right thing to do. It is a win-win if we can figure out how to create scalable, sustainable flexibility for our frontline associates. So what does flexibility mean for frontline labor? So let's ponder over that for a moment, right? We know for folks like us, you could step out right now with your laptop and your cell phone, and you can be productive mostly productive in some of your Zoom meetings right now. But for your frontline labor, you need them physically present in the facility. So how do we start thinking about that flexibility? So we've started putting a thesis around this, and it's relatively simple. So for a frontline worker, it's about when do I work, how much do I work, and what do I work on, right? That's all there is to it. So there's various initiatives that I'm sure you have looked at in your operations, and they probably fit under one of these three buckets. And if they don't, please see me. I'm happy to update the way we think about this model. But this is typically what we've seen most supply chain companies do in the past. So the when do I work part, I think, is usually intuitive because we've looked at weekday schedules, weekend schedules, mornings, nights, etc. Even going back 10, 15 years, I used to hear about this mommy shift. It's a little bit pejorative, but it's this idea that a young mother is able to drop her kids to the bus stop and then be home in time to pick them up from the bus stop, right? So 10 to 2 kind of a shift. So the when part, I think, is relatively well understood. The how much part, and we'll talk about this in a moment, is, think about your own operations. Are we very heavily oriented towards full-time work or nothing else for you, right? Are we accommodative? Are we inclusive of people in our communities who have great work ethic, right? Very dependable, reliable, but just can't give you 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, right? What are we doing for them? What part-time options do we have? So think about what that means from how much are we expecting our workers to put in there. And then the what do I work on? This is the fun part. So how many of us here have a skills matrix for our operations, right? That was my next question. Is it updated? That's when you say, right? But that's typically the challenge that we've seen. It's pretty pervasive everywhere. We have some kind of a skills matrix. We've done lip service to this forever, but we've always historically struggled to keep it updated. If we manage to figure out why the skills matrix doesn't stay updated by that frontline supervisor, right? What is the root cause? And by the way, we have a thesis around this, so we can talk a little bit after we finish this. If we can figure out how to operationalize that skills matrix, we could truly take into account what is it that people want to work on. Can it change from day to day? Maybe not, but can we take that into account, right? So that's also a type of flexibility that the workforce is looking for. So we can talk a little bit more about that as well. And then how can we make this happen? Another way to think about it is, this is what workers want, and this is what operations leaders should think about, right? So think about the composition of your workforce. Are we very heavily invested with all our eggs in the basket of, hey, it's full-time work or nothing? And then policies and processes, the skills matrix is sort of that third one out there, right? And then last comes the tech enablement. So let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's not think about, okay, what kind of technology can I go out and procure before we have thought through the other pieces of this. So the software enablement comes at the end, but what we need is leadership buy-in. We need the operations community to understand that there's more than one way to skin the cat. let's figure out what that workforce composition can realistically look like. What are the policies, processes that HR team members are able to buy into and go innovate on and push the envelope? Think about it. The gig economy has been around for over a decade now. When I was hitting the workforce, I was deemed a digital native, right? Which meant they could put me in front of a computer and expect me to work. This generation that's hitting the workforce are gig economy natives, right? How are we meeting this generation where the way they think and they work? Gig economy for the supply chain frontlines is a horrible idea. Let me be the first one to call that out. But what we are doing right now with mandatory forced overtime, right? Pretending as if this is September 1926 when Henry Ford popularized 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's not the world we live in anymore. So what can we learn from the gig economy in terms of offering real flexibility to people while ensuring reliability and dependability of the skills and the operations? So once you've taken care of those first three things, then let's think about the tech enablement. So that's sort of the foundation of how we think about this thesis around flexible work on the front lines. And now I'm delighted to welcome Brian. Brian's a big champion of frontline labor flexibility. I let him talk a little bit more about Insight Global, but Brian's a thought leader and has been recognized in the industry for his innovation to his world of work. So Brian, thank you for coming up and take it away.
Thanks, Real.
Thanks.
All right. Well, first, thank you guys for having me. Just a little bit about Insight and what we do. So Insight is not a traditional manufacturer where I think you use the example, put sand in the furnace and glass comes out the other end. What we are, though, is we are a global solutions integrator. And so I used an example today where city of Dallas-Fort Worth came to us and they wanted to install camera systems across their city to identify gunshots and then feed that live feed of the camera footage directly into the squad car. What Insight does is we will actually sell all of the IT components that go along, so the cameras, Panasonic Toughbooks. We will then do the installation, so we install the cameras on the telephone poles, light poles, etc. Install the Panasonic Toughbooks directly into the squad cars. We then write the software. So we do app dev, software development to write the software to actually triangulate the position and then move the camera systems directly to where that gunshot came from and then feed that directly into the squad car for first responders so they can see what kind of scenario they're driving into. So we are a hardware reseller, we are a software reseller, we are a app developer, and then what really allows us to deliver these services is we have these integration centers across North America. We have 4 in North America, and we deploy about 12 million configured assets every single year. And we do everything from a grocery store in a box, fast food chain in a box, but we are taking raw components being potentially mobile devices, PCs, laptops, servers, networking equipment, cameras, and we are then manufacturing them into one solution and deploying them out to the field for our clients. We did have a pretty cool video here. It's large, so we weren't able to play it, but we did just stand up a new facility in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I think it's worth highlighting because we try to drink a lot of our own champagne. So we are a technology company, so we try to leverage technology in everything that we do. A lot of times that means robotics, AI, automation. But we still have a very hefty workforce and a need for that workforce because a lot of what we do is custom across all of the different clients that we service. So we might do a client today where we're doing a handful of units. We might have an deployment next week for a couple hundred units, and the work changes. So automation in terms of robotics doesn't really work for us in that scenario. And so a couple of issues that we were running into last year is, well, first and foremost, I don't really like working. I want to work 410s. That's my goal in life, is to work 410s. But in order to do that, I have to get my workforce to work 410s. So we were trying to offer flexibility in our workforce as much as possible. We want to offer shifts around 4/8s, 410s, 5/8s, part-time workers, etc. But the problem that we were running into is as my supervisors, if I go and ask my supervisor who's supposed to show up today, we had no way to understand who was actually supposed to be there, if they actually showed up, what kind of skills they have, are those skills meeting our requirements, etc. We had a lot of attrition and a lot of, so our attrition 2023, 2022 was about 25% on an annual basis, which is pretty high. So, and a lot of that had to do with flexibility and our inability to provide flexibility to our teammates. And then one of our larger facilities is actually located right here in Hanover Park, Illinois, about 20 minutes away from this facility. And good old Illinois dealt us a blow last year where they said that essentially we had to pay agency workers the same benefits and the same compensation as our full-time employees. So it meant that our burden rate for contract labor went through the roof. The last piece is we do get very seasonal. We do a lot of school districts. We respond to ransomware attacks, events, etc. We had a client last year that had 16,000 devices that got bricked out in the field, and we had to deploy in like 10 days. So we have these huge spikes that we just weren't able to ramp to. Even with our only opportunity that we could ramp was to do mandatory overtime, which in the majority of states that we do, we could only add one shift on a Saturday, 8 hours. So it was about a 20% cap on our ability to flex. So we started looking at shift management tools, and just a little bit more on the issues that we had specific to Chicago is the equal pay for temp workers we talked about, overtime eligibility, and then prohibition on work week averaging. So we really wanted to go and introduce that part-time labor force, offer that flexibility, but again, needed a tool to manage it. So we've come up with a few things. First of all, the solution is actually bringing in Wilya, which is a shift management tool, utilizing that tool. But what it gave us that some of our other tools, and I was telling Raheel this today. So we are an app developer, right? We do this ourselves, and I probably looked at 8 internal tools that do something similar and that we couldn't develop to do exactly what that would be cost effective to develop to do exactly what Wilya was doing. The process to actually get Wilya on board, it took so long because at the exact same time we had just acquired a company in the UK that does app dev and had something similar, but didn't have the skills matrix, which is what we were really looking for, is how do I understand what teammate is able to drive a forklift? What skill set in that forklift? Are they expert level? Are they trainee? What are they able to do technology work? Are they proficient? Do they have a CCNA? Can they do smartphones, desktop, laptop, networking, server, storage, etc.? So just understanding where all of my skills were, where they could be applied, and then have that overall shift management tool that could plug into our ADP system or our ERP system. So today what we're doing is we are actually offering volunteer overtime. So that was kind of our first step, is let's just get the tool functional in our environment. When we do have overtime shifts, let's allow teammates to go ahead and sign up for those shifts. We are utilizing, we have a lot of AI solutions within our environment today running on AI-enabled camera systems. So utilizing that data to optimize our shift coverage, where we have shifts coming in, where can we beef up shifts? Maybe there might be a 4-hour swing shift that we bring in between the hours of 9 and 1 as our peak season, as orders are dropping, or peak time of the day as orders are dropping, just to beef up that one shift. And then we are just starting to recruit a part-time flexible talent pool. So we're going with about a 3-to-1. If we were to hire one teammate, we were going to go with 3 part-time W-2 teammates, which drives our burden rate down from about 23% to about 10%. And if we do ever have to burst, we could easily just add more shifts without going into an overtime rate. So the burden rate's lower and we're avoiding overtime. And then the last thing that's not on here is once we get past this, and once we have this part-time W-2 gig workforce brought into our environment, we actually then want to offer all of that flexibility to our teammates. So we have teammates that want to do 4/8s, we have teammates that want to do 4/10s, and offer those almost infinite amount of shift options that we can give our full-time teammates, so that way they don't leave. There was a statistic that really kind of drove this home that came out at the beginning of last year. It was actually by the Manufacturing Institute. And they said that 50% of workers are looking for flexibility in their environment. 63.5% of workers are going to look for flexibility in their next job. So this became kind of a sticking point for us to make sure that we were offering those options to our teammate. We talked about creating the pool of flexible workforce. Technology can tap into talent capacity, volunteer overtime versus mandatory overtime. I actually have a situation, so we are rolling this tool out right now. I actually have a situation this weekend where I have to mandatory overtime just in order to meet overall client expectation. This is a big one. So I'm a believer of, most of my teammates in our productivity environment are making, somewhere in the area of, $20 an hour, $25 an hour, depending on, that frontline warehouse associate, base level technician. I'm kind of that, let's give everybody on a path to make at least $70,000 a year. And so cross-trained workers can be cross-deployed. So we want to utilize some of this technology to allow our teammates to go in and apply for different skills, get different skills within the environment, and then go focus on capturing different hours, capturing more hours within the day-to-day to get to that price point. We're also doing like not necessarily mentioned here, but we utilize an AI solution to scrub our camera systems to get overall individualized teammate productivity. To then drive kind of pay for performance. So that way we can give teammates on a path, get them cross-trained, get them on a path to make that kind of money within our environment. Again, just to kind of reduce that attrition rate. The company I work for, they're very big on, if you put an ROI up there, they're going to measure you against it. They're going to hold you to it. So I went very conservative on my ROI investment. My ROI investment, I think year one will be $72,000. That is assuming I only get a 25% reduction in overtime, and it assumes no cost avoidance whatsoever from lowering my burden rate from 23% down to 10%. So this is just purely an ROI on what my 2024 overtime was, and assuming a 25% reduction to that, minus obviously the cost of the software. But we have estimates that'll put us well north of a $500,000 in ROI year one, just in cost avoidance and hard cost reduction. So what do we expect? We improved the overall improved shift coverage, reduced hiring costs. So that's one of the interesting things, that when I first went to HR and I was like, hey, we're going to have to hire and recruit 3 to 1. Their eyes got big, right? They're like, we're gonna have to recruit 3 as many resources. That's gonna stretch our resources too thin. And it's, in my opinion, we were able to have the conversation with them. It's quite the opposite, right? If I can reduce that attrition rate, today you're having to hire, hundreds of teammates every single year just to keep up with attrition, utilize agency, utilize W-2. So improve shift coverage and reducing the overall hiring cost. Higher work engagement and retention, really trying to get to like a sub 15% attrition rate with the offering of this flexibility. And then that scalable workforce model. That one's important because my goal is to get to a 20% flex workforce. And so if they're working somewhere on average between 16 and 20 hours every single week, in a moment's notice, I can light up all of those teammates, send out additional shifts. We think we can get about a 20% increase in our overall flexibility. So a total of 40% flexibility in our workforce in as little as a week. So that would be through both the gig workforce and utilizing mandatory weekend, mandatory Saturday. I really appreciate the transparency here. So when I went through this with my executive team on why we wanted to do this, we wanted to look at just some of the risks, right, and just call it out. And Rahil was actually, was like, hey, let's just throw them in the slide. Let's talk about them. So one of the first ones was low teammate adoption, right? And this is because depending on the state that you reside in, there's a lot, you can't actually mandate the teammate put an application on their phone. If you do, depending on the state, you might be required by state law to pay for their cell phone bill. One of the ways that we actually got around that is because Wilya has a web-based solution. So I'm not mandating it goes on their cell phone. For ease of use, they could put it on their cell phone. Increased altered recruiting practices, right? So today our recruiters are focused on hiring full-time teammates, some full-time W-2 teammates or agency contractors. this introduces a whole new pool of teammates that they might not have any experience recruiting for. When we were looking at technologies, we actually were looking at companies that can assist us. And again, Wilya has the expertise to actually train our HR team and is working to train our HR team right now. So spending a lot of time going out to universities, doing job fairs, doing job programs to get teammates into that gig workforce. Interesting one is increased potential for unionization. Right? Theoretically, if you have a teammate who's just coming in via an application, now what I will say is all of the part-time W-2 teammates that are going to be coming into Insight, all of them will be vetted through our normal recruiting practices, so they will all be onboarded as Insight teammates. But there's an opportunity there that if you're moving a lot more people into the facility, that there's an increased potential for somebody that's a bad actor to be walking around and saying, "Hey, you guys should unionize." And so, no good way to solve that. Actually, that was legal's recommendation is just put your ear to the ground and, be on the floor if you're hearing anything. And then the last piece is client and Insight security requirements. So we do a lot of government contracts. We do a lot of Department of Defense contracts. We do a lot of healthcare, financial institutions. In fact, you guys might have heard of a large ransomware attack that happened into a large healthcare institution last year. We actually helped them through that. And so there's a lot of concern around, hey, what if you have a bad actor that comes into the environment? Again, not necessarily part of the full-time employee that might not have as much skin in the game. Is there a potential security risk? Rahil will tell you we put them through the ringer in our security requirements. One of the things that we actually take a lot of pride in is just a little scar tissue. We tend to help companies through ransomware attacks and cyberware attacks. So because of that, we are very keen to what what should we be looking out for? What kind of security risk should we be identifying? So, I was joking again today, like if I plug a USB drive into my laptop, that's it. If I let my backpack out of sight for me for just a minute, like our info security team will have my back. So it's like we're very worried about info security requirements. We checked all of those boxes with Wilya.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
Appreciate that. So what we wanted to do, because again, I'm a recovering HR guy, so we love those 2x2 boxes. Here's a quick questionnaire for you to take for a spin. If you want to scan that QR code, what it's going to do is help you look at a flexibility maturity kind of curve, right? So what does it look like to start offering some flexibility? And then how entrenched is it? Where are we on that maturity curve? So very simple questionnaire of just multiple choices, and it should give you some ideas. Obviously, not a silver bullet. This is not going to solve anything for you, but in your leadership roles, you all have some influence and you have the ability to go asking some pesky questions internally. And hopefully what this does is gives you a few ideas of, hey, HR, have we thought about this? Hey, supply chain, have we thought about this? So the idea here is to just give you a few of those leading questions to ask and think through as you get back on a plane or a ride back home today. So that's all we had in terms of prepared material, but Brian and I are happy to take any questions now. So we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahil. Remind me of your booth number in case anyone's got any questions.
61. So we're downstairs 61.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And you're going to be here today and tomorrow?
Indeed.
Perfect.
Thank you.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.